More than words, a sacrifice. Words have incalculable power. They can heal, they can hurt, they can build, but also destroy. However, when it comes to love and sacrifice, words alone are often not enough. How many promises do you make when you're in love? But statistics show us that around 50% of marriages divorce, and many don't even get married because they don't make a commitment in love. We live in a time of real crisis in the true practice of love. Something deeper is needed when we talk about love. Something that goes beyond lips. Something that resonates in the heart and is reflected in actions. This is the central message of the life and death of Jesus. More than words, a sacrifice. Jesus comes into the world with a revolutionary message, a message of unconditional love, forgiveness, and surrender. During his ministry, he spoke about the importance of loving others, of putting others before himself, and to serve with a pure heart. But what made his message unique was that he not only preached these teachings, but lived them in their entirety. He not only spoke of God's love, but demonstrated it with deeds. The culmination of his message and his life was the sacrifice he made on the cross. A sacrifice that wasn't just an act of obedience, but also the greatest act of love that humanity has ever known. The mission of Jesus, a call to sacrifice. From the beginning of his ministry, Jesus knew that his mission on earth would not consist only of preaching or healing the sick, although his words were full of life, hope, and power, and transformed lives. He also knew that his life had to be given for the price for the sins of humanity. The word sacrifice became the center of his message, but not only an abstract idea, but a reality lived throughout his life. Jesus taught his disciples and the crowd that to follow him, they had to be willing to renounce themselves, their personal desires, and bear their own cross. In Matthew chapter 16, verse 24, Jesus said, "If anyone wants to be my disciple, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me." These words reflected the essence of what Jesus was willing to do, renounce his own will, to do the Father's will, even if that meant suffering and death. But the true magnitude of what Jesus asked for would only be understood in his final sacrifice, the decision to give yourself up for love. Jesus' decision to go to the cross was one of the most difficult of his life. He knew what humiliation would mean. Suffering and death. Even so, in the moments prior to his arrest in the Garden of Gethsemane, when the weight of the mission and suffering invaded him, he prayed to the Father, "Father, if you want, pass this cup from me, but not my will but yours." It's registered to Luke 22:42. That prayer shows Jesus' internal struggle, who, being completely human, wished to avoid suffering, but his love for humanity was greater than his personal desire. In that moment of anguish, he decided to give his life for us, fully trusting in God's plan for the salvation of the world. Jesus not only preached about love, he lived that love to the end. Instead of seeking his own safety or comfort, he chose sacrifice. He decided that his life would be given up by those who did not deserve it, In every one of his lashes he received, in every insult, in every nail that went through his body, he demonstrated an incomprehensible love, a love that is not based on merit, but total dedication. Crucifixion, the supreme sacrifice, the cross is the symbol of sacrifice par excellence. Jesus not only died as a martyr, not only was he a victim of a corrupt system, he voluntarily gave himself to fulfill the purpose of saving humanity. Every moment of his crucifixion was a tangible manifestation of his love and obedience to the Father. In that act, the cross became a place of reconciliation, where the gap between God and men was closed forever. During the last hours of his life, Jesus spoke words that revealed the scope of his sacrifice. One of the best known was consummated. It is registered in San Juan, 1930. With these words, Jesus declared that his mission was accomplished, that his sacrifice had been consummated, sufficient to cover the sins of the world. There was nothing more to be done. The price of salvation was paid. His life given on the cross was the definitive solution to sin, and through his sacrifice, it gave us the opportunity to have a restored relationship with God, an immeasurable sacrifice. Imagine a father who has a young son who urgently needs a heart transplant. The father is the only match. Forgiving your heart is such a risky process that you could lose your life in the attempt. The father is faced with a difficult decision: save his son at the cost of his own life or do nothing. Without hesitation, the father decides to sacrifice himself in the process. His life is lost, but the son is given a new chance to live. This is a reflection of what Jesus did for us. He didn't just preach love. He didn't just say, love your neighbor. He gave himself completely to save us, even at the cost of his own life. He paid the price for our sins, a debt we couldn't pay. His sacrifice was real, tangible, and left a mark on the history of humanity that can never be erased and will call for action. The sacrifice of Jesus calls us to make a decision. Jesus did not come only to teach, but to make our salvation possible. He gave us an example of how we should live, loving others, serving, without expecting anything, change, and when necessary, sacrificing ourselves for the good of others. Today, Jesus invites us to follow his example. It is not just about being listeners of his words, but about being makers of them. The question is, are we willing to live as he lived? Are we willing to do more than just talk about love, but live it through real sacrifices in our lives? Each one of us has the opportunity to respond to the sacrifice of Jesus. I invite you to choose to live a life of love, dedication, and service to others, especially in your own family, being faithful until death to your spouse, and fulfilling responsibilities to your children. The cross of Jesus is not only a symbol of sacrifice, but also a call to live in the same way today. When thinking about the sacrifice of Jesus, let us make the decision to respond with our own lives, loving others as he loved us, and carrying our daily cross to follow him. What decision do you make? I invite you to participate in the free Bible course at the feet of Jesus to learn more about the life and values of Jesus and be able to follow his example. You can request the course on the website. Visit w.labibliatienerazon.org. I invite you to the next topic, also the love that defeated death. May God bless you.